Okay, hello everybody. Second review that I'm going to be filming today, and then we'll see if my buddy messages me back about the baseball thing that they're at right now and how much longer they're going to be there. And I might go over and see what's going on over there for a little bit, and then I don't know what else I'm going to do. Probably might take my beer cans back, seeing as I'm going to be out possibly this afternoon. If not, I'll find another time to take them. But today we are going to be reviewing the movie Don't Worry, Darling, starring Florence Pugh and Harry Styles. Whoops, I need to learn how to spell, apparently. So, there was quite a bit of controversy behind this movie. Now, I didn't read into it too much. I just kind of went by what I was hearing from other people and a little bit online that I seen, like little blurbs and stuff. So I guess originally, it was supposed to be Shia LaBeouf was supposed to be the love interest of Florence Pugh's character, Alice Chambers, and Jack Chambers were the two main characters. Uh, and I guess he was originally cast as a love interest, I guess, but him and Olivia Wilde were having some sort of issues because she's the director of this film. And then they went with Harry Styles, and I guess they were having a bunch of issues with him. So then Olivia Wilde called him tried to call him back to the film, and I believe he refused anything she offered him. Was the story I've heard. If that's just the story I've heard, I don't really know. I guess that's my little drama blurb and kind of my intro to the video as we get into this film because it was a very intense film. So I mean, maybe some people got into the characters a little too much and maybe went off the rails. I'm not really sure, but it does seem like that could be a possibility with a film with a lot of intense scenes. Yeah, it was kind of like you were on the edge of your seat, but you could kind of relax at the same time because you weren't really sure what was going to happen next. So this did have some horror elements to it. Um, and yeah, uh, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, it had some horror elements to it, but from the trailer, it really seemed like it was going to be more of a horror-themed movie. So kind of very interesting that it had the more of like a thriller sense twist to it. Um, and you were left in suspense for the entire movie as to what was actually going to happen at the end. And Olivia Wilde did star in this movie. There were some people in this movie that I was just like, wow, that they were cast in this movie. That's very interesting. So the main cast was obviously Florence Pugh, Harry Styles, Chris Pine, Olivia Wilde, and I guess Nick Kroll because technically he was in the beginning of the movie. And then we had a bunch of kind of secondary characters come in throughout the movie, and I guess Timothy Simons, who played Dr. Collins, was also one of them. So Nick Kroll played Dean, and I'm trying to remember who his wife was. Um, was his wife Peg? It might have been. I'm trying to remember. I think his wife must have been Peg. Or no, his wife was Olivia Wilde. Right, that's correct. Okay. Whoops. Went too far in the photos. Yeah, so at the very beginning of the film, it seems like they're kind of all friends, and they're having this party, and then one of the girls, Margaret, played by Kiki Lane, starts to have these like weird episodes where it seems like she's going crazy, right? She says that they're not actually meant to be where they are, and she starts seeing things and having these weird dreams. And at the same time, Florence Pugh's character, Alice, is also starting to have these same types of visions, so she's not really sure what to think of what Margaret's already thinking. And then, as the movie progresses, obviously, I believe Margaret ends up killing herself, and they try to hide it as she had an accident. And uh, yeah, um, obviously Alice denies, or yeah, says that she doesn't want the medication they're going to give her to stop these weird dreams or visions or whatever she's having, like these episodes, and Jack refuses it as well. And Frank is the designer of this community, but nobody knows what the men do when they leave, and they just go do this work with these materials, and nobody really knows what they do. They're just gone for the day, and then when they come back, everything's kind of seems too, yeah, what's the word? Like too, uh, not too perfect, but like in order. But I'm trying to think of what the word would be for that. Too set. Like everything just seems to be, yeah, I guess too perfect. It kind of makes sense. And then obviously Florence Pugh's character Alice starts noticing like these little things, like the eggs. Just when she goes to crack them, they just crack in her hand, and there's nothing actually in the eggs. And then she having the dreams of the dancers and the eyeball, and she actually ends up seeing this plane crash at one point, which obviously wasn't supposed to be part of it. And I was kind of wondering, I was kind of thinking at one point that maybe they were outside, like maybe they were a town in a nuclear testing site, and they were creating nuclear weapons, and then at the end they were going to test it on the people to see what the effect was. I wasn't really sure. Yeah, I was kind of interested to, yeah, find out what exactly they were doing, because it kind of looked like a, that's kind of what the town reminded me of, was like one of the ones that they would put the dummies in, and then they would record what happened to the dummies when they set off the nuclear bombs. So that's almost what I was thinking, is that they were creating this like perfect community, and then they were just going to end up killing them all in the end. Because it seemed like he was trying to keep, like, the creator of the city, Frank, or this community, Frank, was trying to make it seem like everything on the outside of the community was bad, and inside the community was the safe place to be. And he knew that they were asking a lot of the women from the community, and it was tough on them because they didn't really know what was going on, but they were pushing forward, sort of thing. So it's a very interesting concept from him, and they really kind of, played Ring Around the Rosie about what was actually happening, and nobody really 100% knew, but they knew that it was, their job was just as important as the men's job in this community, or at least Olivia Wilde's character kept telling them that. And then we find out at the end that Bunny actually knew all along what was happening, and so basically this Frank guy created this simulation world uh, where sign up, you sign up your wife. So what was the Victory Project was what he called it, right? So yeah, I guess it was in the 1950s. Interesting. So this, yeah, they were supposed to be in this perfect world in the 1950s where he was just working his way up in this company, and she was just kind of like the perfect housewife type deal, and that's how all the women were in the community, and everything was supposed to be kind of like have the honeymoon feeling to it. And obviously Bunny had her kids in this world, and she had her husband, and I guess she chose this, right? Because after Jessica kills Frank in the simulation, I guess he dies in, or no, after she kills Jack, right? After she kills Jack, not Frank. After she kills Jack, I guess anybody who dies in the simulation, if they're a man, they die in the real world. Uh, so he sends her off in this simulation to have therapy or whatever, and she comes back, and then she starts having these outbursts just immediately again. So whatever he did to her, uh, in the real world, I'm assuming, because it showed shock therapy, so I'm assuming that's what he probably did to her himself in their house, because she was strapped to the bed so that she couldn't move, and she was just stuck in this simulation constantly. So the dreams that she was having was actually the flashing images on the ceiling in their bedroom. So it was just constantly flashing these images that caused this, I guess, psychosis in the head to have this simulation of them having the perfect life. Because obviously she was a nurse, she worked super long hours in the real world. Neither of them were really happy with one another. It seemed like they were always fighting. So he just got to the point where he wanted to take the step and have the perfect life together with her, where they were always on the honeymoon. It seemed like they were always, yeah, just constantly in love with one another. And then when she starts questioning things, he realizes that the whole plan that he had was starting to slowly backfire. And obviously, Frank's character says that nobody has come along and challenged him the way that she has. So he really wanted her to challenge him even further so that he could push the program even further. And I guess he was kind of trying to figure out how to tweak the bugs, obviously, so that when they worked on it again, this type of thing wouldn't be happening, right? They'd have a new error or whatever. So this one, the next phase of the Victory Project would be even greater, because you can see signs in the movie where it says Victory Phase 2 coming soon, sort of thing. So I was kind of wondering, like what they were doing exactly. And when he gets promoted, when Jack gets promoted to be on the board of directors, I think it was, is what they called it, board of a director or executive, board of executives maybe. And they weren't ever supposed to go out to the headquarters, but obviously when Alice goes out there, she sees, when she touches the headquarters building, she sees a whole bunch of stuff, and then that, I believe that's when she started having the even stronger visions and things, right? So what was I saying just before that? Challenging her, or challenging him, so the project was even greater. Yeah, so it seemed like phase 2 was them kind of all having kids, but I'm not really sure. That's a scary thought too, because if they're just, yeah, like how would they do that? Because they can't actually have real kids in the simulation. So if they were, how would they be impregnating the women in the real world? That, oh, there's just so much in this movie that just, when you really think about it, is kind of creepy. I'm trying to think of what else there was. Oh yeah, the cool thing about this was when every time she had a vision, she would wake up, it seemed like hours later. So what Jack was doing to her, I guess, was bringing her out of the simulation and then putting her back in. But I don't really know how he was able to. I suppose, it's kind of interesting how he was able to just bring her out and put her right back in, but she wouldn't remember anything in between as to what happened, because she said she was on the trolley, and then all of a sudden she's awake in the bedroom at their house, and then at one point she has a vision and she's still sitting in the bathtub, and he goes, "Come on, you got to put this dress on and get ready and go," sort of thing. And then, what was the other one? I'm trying to think of a couple of the other ones. Oh yeah, where she's drowning, where she sees herself drowning on the TV, and then all of a sudden she's just at the window in the curtains, and the wall closes in on her. So there was just a whole bunch of little subtle signs that she was realizing as she went. And then obviously when she realizes finally what Jack has done to her, she kills him for it. And you do hear her wake up in the real world, because I guess uh, obviously if the man dies in the simulation, he dies in real life. So there's this big huge car chase scene at the end with all the guys in the red jackets or red overalls or red onesies. I don't really know what they were, but yeah, they seem to be the kind of like protectors of the simulation, and they were trying to stop her from getting out of the simulation, and she ends up outsmarting them, obviously, but I think they were probably just put into the programming to stop certain things like this from happening, right? So that she would always be just dragged back into where she was, and then that way Jack would be happy. But then Chris Pine's wife in the simulation stabs him and says, "Now it's my turn." So I'm kind of confused as to why. Like, is she going to start taking over the project? Because her name was Shelley, played by Gemma Chan. And then we had Violet and I believe Bill come in later on too, right? Played by Sidney Chandler and Douglas Smith. They came in later on in the movie. And I think that was about, and then obviously Peg. Was she single, or who was she with? I can't remember who Peg was with. And I'm trying to remember who Margaret was with, too. Hmm. I think Margaret's husband must have been, was it Peter? Was Peter her husband? Or was Peter Peg's husband? It's so hard to remember because there was Yeah. I think Peg might have been single, actually. So I guess Bunny chose this world because she didn't. I guess she lost her kids in the real world, so she chose to be in the simulation for life, so that she had her kids in the simulation so that she could see them for the rest of her life. So she chose it, so she knew all along what was happening. So that was kind of scary because it seemed like there was more than one person in control, I suppose. But I mean, I guess the main thing of it was for the for the men to have the better lives, uh, or maybe for the I guess maybe for the women to have the better lives, really, or at least that's what they thought they were doing, I suppose, with this whole project. Yeah, but then she stabs him and says, "It's my turn now." So is she gonna be taking over the Victory Project? And I guess they're coming to kill Alice at the end of the movie. So I'm expecting there to be. It kind of so open-ended, it almost seems like there's gonna be a second one. It just seems like one of those things where there probably will be a second one where the women take over, maybe, and it's the other way around, which would be a totally interesting, very interesting concept to see if they can do, they can run the program as well a second time around. Obviously, they're going to have the knowledge, right, of what to do, like right and wrong of what to do, sort of thing. So I'm just going to see what Olivia Wilde's projects are coming up. So she just has Babylon from the looks of it. Now, I guess maybe we'll have to see because I can't imagine her. It's just so open-ended, and I guess kind of open for interpretation as to maybe what you think could happen, I suppose. Kind of interesting. Hmm. Anyway, I guess we'll see what ends up happening, whether there is going to be a second one, and depending, I guess that will all depend on how this movie does in theaters, right? Was there anything else that I could really? I guess the car chase scene was definitely cool, where she makes them all crash, and then you can hear them just climbing up the mountain after her, and she has to make the decision of whether she wants to stay in the simulation or not. Um, I think she definitely made the right choice by getting out of there because I think it would have ended very badly for her if she had have decided to stay. Uh, so yeah, this was just a good movie of keeping you on the edge of your seat the entire time and keeping you guessing as to what exactly they were creating, what exactly the men were working on when they left every day, why everything had to be so kind of like set in motion and prim and proper, and everything was just too seemed too perfect, right? Like yeah, like nothing was going wrong, so you knew something eventually was going to go wrong, sort of thing. I guess was the whole plot of it. And she actually asks Bunny, like, do any of the other women know that they're here besides you? And she goes, no. And she goes, well, what about the kids? She said, no, the kids aren't real. So I guess the kids are. So I guess maybe they can have kids in the simulation and then the kids are just part of the simulation. That seems odd, though. There's got to be something else to that part. Anyway, I think I've probably been talking long enough about this movie. And I think I've pretty much covered everything that I can. And this is probably the first review that I've actually sat down and done the night after I've gone and watched the movie. But I did give this movie a 9 out of 10. Really great acting by all of the actors and actresses, obviously. And kudos to Olivia Wilde on her directing, because like she is honestly becoming one of my favorite directors. And she does it in a very like kind of like an M Night Shyamalan sense almost. I wonder if she ever like draws inspiration from him, because it kind of seems like that's the sort of the same style as M Night Shyamalan, which is kind of funny because an M Night Shyamalan trailer for Don't Knock at the Cabin played before this movie started. So I'm kind of wondering if she draws some inspiration from him. Um, Kind of almost seems like she would with her directing style, because she kind of always keeps you in suspense and then there's just a big twist at the end, which always seems to be the way M. Night Shyamalan movies work, right? But not all of them are good. Uh, and I'm kind of wondering what else she's directed. Because I know she doesn't really, I don't really know if she acts in much anymore, to be completely honest. besides, like, maybe her own movies. Yeah, it seems like she directs a lot more now than she used to. She just kind of seems to be directing more than acting. So let's just see what else. What else has she directed? Actress, okay. Uh, where? Come on, director. Wow. Oh, producer, director. Okay, so she's directed Don't Worry, Darling, Wake Up, Booksmart, Little Red Hot Chili Peppers thing, Free Hugs. Okay, so she hasn't directed as much as I thought, I guess. Oh, upcoming projects as a director. Okay. Perfect. Who's gonna be in this? Interesting. Okay, Untitled Sony Marvel project. Oh, she's working on a Marvel project. That could be good with her directing style. I wonder what. And then there's some sort of untitled Universal project in development. Do we think that could be a possible sequel to? Could that be the possible sequel to Don't Worry, Darling? I don't know. It could be. Was Universal Pictures involved in Don't Worry, Darling? Let's just see here. Because if they were, it's possible. You don't really know. Was Universal? I'm going to have to look at the trailer after that and see. But anyway, I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. I just thought it was really well done, really well directed, really great storyline. Yeah, again, keeping you guessing sort of thing. And yeah, I would say that this was, if you haven't seen it in theaters, I think it just came out this week. So yeah, I would definitely go give it a watch on the big screen because I think it is worth it. And especially if you're into like the thriller genre, it's definitely one of those ones you have to go see for sure. And yeah, Olivia Wilde is a really great director. So yeah, definitely go give it a watch. I give high props to this film. It wasn't quite a 10 out of 10, but yeah, it was definitely right on the cusp of that for sure. So that's why I gave it a 9, because I think it really did deserve that. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next review. Bye bye for now.